Listen to part of a lecture in an economics class and answer the question. The average unemployment rate in the European Union is officially around 11%. This doesn't look at the differing rates between countries. This number can be inaccurate, as there are many jobs to be found in the sector called social economy. Do you have any idea what social economy could be?
Welfare? Part of the European Union is on social assistance, and it's considered a job?
In a sense, welfare is correct, but your explanation is way out in left field. This sector, accounting for 6% of all jobs in Europe, is made up of firms and organizations that have goals that go beyond making money. Their main goal is to improve the quality and accessibility of their products, in addition to increasing the quality of life of their members and employees by educating and training them. Many of these companies focus more specifically on helping build basic job skills in the most needy people. Young people who may never have worked, and older, long-term unemployed people. The second group is mostly men who once worked in traditional industries and who find the skills that gave them status are no longer in demand. People working in this sector often have multiple problems, not just the fact that they are unemployed. They range from educational failure to family and housing problems and alcohol or drug abuse. All of those people have their own abilities and skills. They are people who are taking responsibility for their own future, given proper support. At number 79, please.
Hi there, that's me. I'm number 79.
How can I help you?
I'd like to register for a course in this department, but I'm in med school.
Ah, that explains why you don't look familiar. I think I know all the faces in engineering. Which course are you interested in?
Engineering Science 1.
Mech 221. We don't get many students from outside the department interested in that course, especially from the medical angle.
I'm interested in cybernetic organisms, like that old television show where the hero is half human and half mechanical. It's just advanced prosthetics, really.
I see. Well, you probably saw in the course description that there are several prerequisites and a co-requisite course, a lot of math and physics.
Right. Well, I was wondering if there can be any exceptions on that. Can I get permission to take the course without having taken those other courses?
I suppose it may be possible, but as it's a compulsory course, it's usually quite full, and the faculty don't want unprepared students slowing the class down. Have you considered auditing the course? You could audit the course, and if you feel confident enough, maybe you could challenge the exam.
Well, I hadn't thought of that. I don't actually need the credits, so that might work for me. I'll go get a coffee and think about it. Thanks.
You're welcome. I'll see you later. Scholarship. Listen to part of a conversation between a student and a clerk in the scholarship department.
Good morning. I am Jeanette.
Good morning. I'm Don Balducci. I've been accepted as a freshman next year in the Faculty of Arts, and I would like information on what scholarships are available to first-year students.
There are many scholarships available to first-year students. Some are only for 1 year, and others are for the full 4 years of the degree, provided that you maintain a specific high average.
What kind of marks do you need to apply for the scholarships?
Well, the top 2% of the entering freshman applicant pool are invited by the Faculty Committee on Honors, Awards, and Prizes to compete for the David White Scholarship. This is a scholarship of $10,000 a year. What are your marks like?
I have a 92% average from my school, but I have not yet received the marks from my government exams.
Well, if you get 95% or better on your government exams, you could definitely be considered as a candidate for the David White Scholarship. The government exam is weighted 50% and your local school marks are weighted 50%. Most students in the past who have received this award had an average of over 93% for their combined score.
If I don't get 95%, would you say there was no use applying?
Well, it certainly wouldn't be likely that you would be awarded this scholarship, but there is nothing preventing you from applying. There are generally about 400 applicants a year.
Does the David White Award guarantee me housing in the university residence?
Yes, it guarantees housing and residence for all 4 years, provided you maintain the requisite 3.0 grade point average. Another bonus, if you have a car, is parking privileges at the residence.
If I'm not in the top 2% of entering freshmen, what other scholarships can I apply for?
You could go to our website. The faculty committee selects students after a rigorous review of each student. Different awards have different criteria. Some scholarships and awards require you to write an essay, while others look at extracurricular activities, life hardships, distinctive personal achievements, or letters of recommendation. It varies widely.
How many scholarships are there in all to apply for?
There are well over 100. However, filling out scholarship applications is a time-consuming job, so I would recommend you narrow down the ones you want to apply for.
Do most scholarships apply to all 4 years?
No, most are on a yearly basis. The ones that are for the full 4 years, providing that you maintain your eligibility through the required GPA in all quarters, also usually give the additional privilege of preferential pre-enrollment. This has the advantage of giving you first crack at registering in the courses of your choice.
Are all scholarships determined by the same committee?
All full scholarships are. By the way, do you have a website address?
Yes, I have it here on your card. I picked up your card when I was at the open house in the spring.
Good. Well, then I would suggest you go to the website now. If you have further questions, you could give me a call back.
Okay, thanks for your help.
You are welcome.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Listen to part of a talk in an introductory art class. The professor is talking about choosing a career in the arts.
Before you undertake a career in the arts, there are a number of factors to consider. Whether your goal is to be an actor or an animator, a saxophonist or a sculptor, talent is an essential consideration. But talent alone won't guarantee a successful career in the arts. You also need training, experience, and self-discipline. Most importantly, however, you should realize that a career in the arts requires a personal sense of commitment, a calling, because art does have a history of insecure employment. A lot of artists find it difficult, even impossible, to live on the money they make from their art. Most have to supplement their income by teaching or by working behind the scenes, or by doing other work not related to the arts.
In your opinion, what's the best way for us to know if we really have a calling to art?
Well, those of you who are interested in art as a career should talk with arts professionals or work in the arts yourselves. Professionals can give good first-hand advice, but experience is the best way to get a feel for the field.
What kind of experience? I mean, how do we get started?
Experience doesn't have to be formal. It can be part-time or volunteer work. For example, if you want to be a photographer or graphic designer, you could work for your school newspaper. Or if your interest is acting, you could start out in community theater. The important thing is getting started, spending time doing something in your chosen medium.
Number 5.
The men of the North Woods tribes were the hunters. The hunting season began in the fall and continued until midwinter. These expeditions frequently took the hunters away from the village for long periods of time. Moose, deer, beaver, bear, and elk were the animals sought. Large deer drives were common, and small animals were taken with snares or the bow and arrow.
Did the women ever go hunting with the men?
The women often accompanied their husbands on hunting parties. Their job was to take charge of the camps.
Do you mean they just cooked for the men? I thought the Native Americans had more of a system of equality.
Overall, men and women shared the labor. On hunting expeditions, women basically supported the men whose job was to procure the game. On the other hand, women controlled other realms of life. For example, women managed all of the agricultural operations. Also, a woman headed each clan, and these women were respected for their role as keepers of the clan.
The Golden Age of American Agriculture. Listen to part of a lecture in a history class. Then answer the question. We call the first 2 decades of the 20th century the Golden Age of American Agriculture. What were the factors that made the period the Golden Age of American Agriculture? Who can offer some reasons?
New strains of crops, improved farming methods, and what about greater use of pesticides and fertilizers?
Absolutely. Technical advances continued to improve productivity. The U.S. Department of Agriculture set up demonstration farms to show how new techniques could improve crop yields. In 1914, Congress created the Agricultural Extension Service to advise farmers and their families about everything from crop fertilizers to home sowing projects. The Department of Agriculture undertook new research, developing hogs that fattened faster on less grain, as well as fertilizers that increased grain production, new hybrid seeds that developed into healthier plants, treatments that prevented or cured plant and animal diseases, and various methods for controlling pests were all introduced around this time. Anything else?
Wasn't there also some kind of population boom around then?
Good. Farm prices were high as demand for goods increased and land values rose. However, the good years of the early 20th century ended following World War I. What was happening then?
Maybe a lot of people, women especially, were moving from the farm to the cities.
What
naturalist has been invited to speak to the members of a college hiking club. Listen to part of the discussion.
Because of their protected status, a lot of bears have lost their fear of people. This may make them appear tame, but they're still potentially very dangerous. Bears are wild animals. 1 or 2 bear attacks occur each year in Glacier Park. The majority of attacks occur because people have surprised the bear.
What should we do if we surprise a bear?
You should try to avoid encounters in the first place by being alert and make noise, talk loud, holler. Bears will usually move out of the way if they hear people approaching.
Some people say to carry bells or put bells on your pack.
Most bells, even the so-called bear bells, are not loud enough. Calling out or clapping hands at regular intervals are better ways to make your presence known.
But isn't it kind of rude to make a lot of noise in the woods? I mean, people go there for peace and quiet.
In bear country, noise is good for you. Hiking quietly endangers you, the bear, and other hikers. People sometimes assume they don't have to make noise while hiking on a well-used trail. Some of the most frequently used trails in Glacier Park are surrounded by excellent bear habitat. You can't predict when and where bears might appear along a trail.
That's for sure. I remember my surprise when a black bear charged me. It must have been running away from hikers who surprised it on the trail ahead of me.
Don't assume a bear's hearing is any better than your own. Some trail conditions make it hard for bears to see, hear, or smell approaching hikers. You should be especially careful near streams, against the wind, or in dense vegetation. Stay with your group and, if possible, avoid hiking early in the morning, late in the day, or after dark, when bears are more likely to be active. Bears spend a lot of time eating, so avoid hiking in areas like berry patches or fields of glacier lilies.
How will the bear act if we surprise it?
Bears react differently to each situation. They may appear to tolerate you and then attack without warning. The most important advice I can give you is never to approach a bear intentionally. Each bear will react differently, and its behavior can't be predicted. All bears are dangerous and should be respected equally.
Political parties in most democracies not only have to win more votes than their rivals to get into power, they also have to persuade the electorate that it is worth their going out to vote in the first place. In the UK, turnout is frequently low, and one reason cited is the weather. Some countries, therefore, have made voting compulsory. It is against the law not to vote, and failing to vote is a punishable offence. In Austria, for example, failure to vote results in an automatic fine, as it does in Australia. As a consequence, voter turnout is rarely less than 92% in both these countries. Other countries have penalties that affect the individual in more practical ways. In Greece, for example, although it is no longer acted on, passports were confiscated or not granted. And in Bolivia, non-voters may be banned from using banks or schools for up to 3 months. The punishment in countries such as France, Germany, the UK and so on is seeing the government you didn't elect raise your taxes.
The heyday of the English landscape garden was the 18th century, and it stood for many things. The appreciation of natural beauty, of course, but also the idea of a civilized life, good taste, one's personal philosophy, and one's social status. Gardens also, though it is hard for us to credit, became expressions of their owners' political affiliations. Until the picturesque style emerged as part and parcel of the Romantic movement, gardens had been strictly formal, laid out with mathematical precision following the Italian and French examples. There then came a backlash against this rigid formality, led by, among others, the poet Alexander Pope. Pope and his allies argued for a more natural nature. Lord Burlington was a major figure in the landscape garden movement, and he was famously influenced by his love of the Italian architect Andrea Palladio, along with the picturesque or romanticized landscapes of Italian classical painting. With these in mind, he scattered his gardens and parks with classical Greek and Roman temples and statues. In other words, he wanted to make the garden look like those paintings.
Yes, it's funny you should mention Merwin. Until about a year ago, I thought England was the only country that had a poet laureate. After all, it's a pretty odd job, isn't it? No salary to speak of and just a barrel of wine or something as payment. But he was, or is, the American poet laureate, isn't he?
That's right, but quite a few other countries have one too.
I know. I looked into it a bit. Other countries in the UK, for a start. Wales, as you'd expect, with their Eisteddfods and long poetic tradition. And Ireland and Scotland. I think some places that were colonies or in the Commonwealth have them. Canada, for example. And who's that wonderful Caribbean poet? The one that wrote Omeros.
Derek Walcott.
That's him. He was the poet laureate of St. Lucia. But what about the rest of Europe? Don't the French have such a thing?
No, I don't think so. They've got the Academy, and you get elected to that if you're considered the best in your field. But I think Germany might have. No, it wasn't Germany. Somewhere else, but I don't remember. By the way, you're a bit behind the times in thinking what they get paid as a barrel of wine. All that changed long ago. But one of the more recent ones asked to have it back.